So first of all, just to introduce myself, my name is Angela South, and I have been at TMCC for 4 years since the inception of Nevada Promise. So I just am fortunate enough I was at the right time, right spot, I guess, and I had the opportunity to apply for this program, like to apply to coordinate the program 4 years ago, and it's been really great. I do have to say that this is going to be my last year with TMCC. My last day is in November, so it's bittersweet. I have had the opportunity to meet a lot of students and parents and just see the progression of the program and all of the great impact that it's having on our community. So I'm really happy to have been part of that. Um, and yeah, this week I had the privilege of going to Reed High School and giving like my last in-person presentation. I did the Nevada Promise training and now I'm here. So I'm just so glad that I do have that interaction with people, with students before I do head out. But I'm very fortunate. Our team, we are part of the recruitment office at TMCC. And so we're fortunate to have high school recruiters. If you haven't met them already, they do go out to the high school and they're the ones who meet with students, counselors, go to parent nights and talk about all of the opportunities at TMCC. And so I'm more on the admin side, and I'm at TMCC coordinating the efforts for Nevada Promise. But I do like to say thank you to our staff, to our student workers who they help us, so much with contacting students, sending reminders, emails, all of that. So I like to say thank you to them as well. And moving forward, nothing should change, right? I will no longer be there, but the whole team will be there, and Nevada Promise is in good hands, and I'll definitely continue. So just to tell you a little bit about today, we are going to talk a little bit about the scholarship, how it began, some of the requirements to earn eligibility, just like initial eligibility, even to apply, and then what are some things that students have to complete while they are on earning the scholarship. And we'll talk a little bit about financial aid. Now, Nevada Promise does have a lot of requirements, and today you'll see my slides. I didn't want to include all of the steps today because by completing our Nevada Promise steps and requirements, students are also completing the admission process to TMCC. And so I don't want to include that today just because they'll definitely hear about that more as they get closer to senior year, or they're already aware of it. But just to begin, students do have to graduate from a high school in the state of Nevada. And typically most students are high school seniors. So that's when they apply. We want them to have one application. And I say that because the scholarship it's a statewide scholarship that can be used at any state community college. Now, of course, we want them to pick TMCC, but I tell students that, take a look at what CSN, College of Southern Nevada, has to offer in Vegas. Is there a particular program you want to do at GBC and Elko or Carson? Maybe they have a certain program that you're interested in. I'm all about what's the best fit for students, and so I do like to make them aware that they can use a scholarship at any community college. But we work very closely with all the colleges, so it's very easy to transfer their applications there. So we only need them to apply one time while they are a high school senior. Now, some students will graduate early, And so if they believe they are on track to graduate and they're technically under the junior status, we want them to apply that fall semester, which would be like their last semester in high school. Unfortunately, if students don't apply during that high school senior year or their last fall semester in high school, then they could not apply to the scholarship in future semesters, like future years and future semesters. So that's really important. And feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions today. Feel free to add it to the chat. I will do my best to take a look at that. Some scholarships do require students to have be a resident in the state of Nevada. So like the Millennium Scholarship, for example, I believe that they have to be in the state for 2 years before they qualify for the scholarship, but that's not the case for Nevada Promise. They do just have to graduate from a Nevada high school. Now, if you have a school that, if you have a student who may not take your traditional route, and maybe they are credit deficient, maybe they just are a better student at a different school, specifically an adult school, like adult, where students would earn their high school equivalency, that's going to be okay. But what will matter is their age. If they earn their high school equivalency after the age of 20, and actually we have to go off of this June 15th deadline. So there's basically a deadline, an age requirement to earn the high school equivalency. So if students have questions about that, like whether they make the cut or not, then I would have them email Nevada Promise. And I see that we have her on the slideshow here. I have the email to our main office, but let me type it in here. This is where you all want to email us if you have any questions about the scholarship. I do apologize. I'm a little sick, so hopefully we'll be all right. So we do have some homeschool students, and they also qualify, but they do have to earn the high school equivalency as well. Now, if a student, this requirement here, it is added to the initial eligibility requirements because I'm not sure if AACT is on track to earn their associate's degree, but for example, TMCC High School, their students, their goal is to complete an associate's degree, so their 2-year program, while they are a high school senior. So by the time they graduate high school, they're also completing their associate's degree. If that happens, at any time that happens, then the student would no longer be eligible. So if a student comes to college, to TMCC, and it could be right after high school, right? They just completed high school, but they already have their associate's degree, they wouldn't qualify for the scholarship. Some students take dual credit courses, so they will have a bunch of college credit, and they'll finish their semester within 1 semester, maybe a year. So it just kind of depends on that time frame. But once a student earns the associate degree, then they would no longer be eligible. So thank you for sending that. Okay. I think this is a really important slide. It's talking about the fees that we cover under Nevada Promise. And so we cover the cost of the classes, and which is the per credit fee plus mandatory fees. So fees that all students have to pay. And in this case, it would be the per credit fee now it's $106.75 per credit. Most classes are 3 credits. They can be 4 credits sometimes. A technology fee, sports complex fee, and the student association fee. So those really range. I believe it's anywhere between $10 to $25 per credit. And so on average, our students are paying about $1,200 out of pocket. Like if they didn't have Nevada Promise, it's between like $1,200 to about like $1,600 for courses alone. So what we're saying is that we would cover that fee, but we don't cover the distance education fee, the lab fee, or application fee. This application fee is for students who apply to TMCC that first time. They don't pay an upfront cost to apply to TMCC. It's only at the time of enrollment, and it's only $25. And then lab fees will range between like $15 to $50 per class. Distance education fees, those have become something like that I'm seeing more and more of is online courses. So a student has the option to take the online course, but it's a fee that we don't cover. So I think that's $15 per credit as well. I mean, $15 for the class. And on top of that, books. So we don't cover the cost of books. Now the scholarship can be used for up to 3 years as long as the student qualifies, maintains eligibility. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I think that's really awesome. You know, it could take students a little bit longer to complete their associate's degree. So we're giving them a little bit more time. There is no income requirement for Nevada Promise, although I'll talk a little bit about the scholarship being a last dollar and what that means, and typically who is awarded a Nevada Promise scholarship and who's not. There is no high school GPA requirement when they are in high school, no GPA requirement. So that's really great. It provides opportunity for students who maybe were not really focused and thinking about college early on during high school, and now maybe they're struggling with their GPAs, but this definitely would provide an opportunity. And then students do have to be degree seeking. So they basically have to apply to a certain program when they apply to TMCC. And there's different ones. So like there's an Associates of Science and Arts. And so those are a little bit more general. So it's not necessarily like they have to know what they want to do when they grow up, right? They just have to have an idea of what they want to go in, which field, like the arts or the sciences. Do you guys have any questions so far about funding? And I do have a few examples too. So this slide is, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Nevada Promise is state funded. It's a scholarship that was passed by the state legislature. And so every 2 years, Nevada Promise is reviewed, and then basically it's approved again. So our state legislature will review the progress and everything that is happening with Nevada Promise, and then they're able to renew it. We have been renewed every year, but this is there because it is a state funded program. So just in case we do run out of funds, then this is the priority awarding process. So anyone who is a current college student, they would get the scholarship first, and then anyone who is applying for the first time. We don't foresee any issues, but it's a disclaimer that we do have to have. So I was talking a little bit about the last dollar scholarship, and so what that means is that If there is a balance on the student's account, then we would pay whatever's left. So there are 4 scholarships that are used first before Nevada Promise. And so if a student qualifies for a Pell Grant, the Supplemental Educational Grant, Silver State Opportunity Grant, or the Millennium Scholarship, those would be used first for the cost of tuition. And then if there is a remainder, if there is a balance, then we would pay the remainder. Most of these are, the first 3 are awarded based on need. So is there a need in the family, and do they qualify for it? And that's determined by the FAFSA. And we'll talk a little bit about the FAFSA today. It is a requirement, so we'll definitely cover that. And then the Millennium Scholarship is a merit-based scholarship. So just depending on whether they have the requirements for this, GPA and I think some class requirements, and they qualify for that. And so if they get any of these, they would be used first. And I do have a few examples. So one example that we see often is a student who qualifies for the Millennium Scholarship. Maybe they don't qualify for any gift aid. So they don't qualify for a Pell Grant or SSOG. So in this case, they do have a balance. Millennium will be awarded first. It will be applied to the account, and then Nevada Promise would basically kick in and pay for the remainder. Then we have a student who doesn't qualify for any gift aid. So they don't qualify for Millennium. There is no need. They don't qualify for a federal Pell Grant. And so in that case, they receive whatever is due at the end. And then we have here a student who does qualify for a Pell Grant. In some cases, the most that students can qualify for a Pell Grant is $3,000, and that's per semester. So in this case, students do have a surplus. There's extra money that they qualified for, more than what is the cost of courses. So in this case, there is no Nevada Promise Award. I would say that 50% of our students are in this situation where they receive enough gift aid to not need the scholarship, and then about 50% who do need it because they don't qualify for any gift aid. They do need it because they don't qualify. So I tell students that either way, by completing our scholarship requirements, they are ensuring that they would be attending college debt-free. And they may not need it that first year, but it's possible that they would need it for the second year in college. I have seen students go between each group. Now, I mentioned 4 scholarships and Nevada Promise, right? But what happens if a student applies to a high school, like their high school scholarship? What if they qualify for a local scholarship, such as like Hot August Nights or the Nevada Women's Fund? In that case, if they do earn those scholarships, it's similar to this right here, where they have extra money coming to them. They're getting paid to go to college. So we want them to continue applying to those outside scholarships, and that would help them pay for books and those fees that we don't cover. So we definitely encourage them to apply to those and also continue with Nevada Promise. So now, I did mention that the scholarship is state mandated and the deadlines are not flexible. So if they do miss a deadline, then they are going to lose the scholarship. I apologize. It's loud out there. But yes, they do get disqualified from the scholarship and they cannot regain the scholarship uh, the following semester, the next year. We remind students of the scholarship requirements like a lot. We text them, we email them, we call them. So they definitely get a bunch of reminders and we tell them to plan ahead, spread out the work, you kind of know what is required of you for the scholarship. And so reach out if you have any questions, if you're not understanding any of the communications coming to the student. If you're a student here to yourself, then do please reach out and let us know how we can help. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have a scholarship deadline, and that is October 31st. That is coming up this weekend, so please have your student apply as soon as possible. And like I said, we only want them to apply to one college. This is kind of what it's going to look like, the application. When students do apply, they get a confirmation email. So make sure that if your student already applied and they haven't gotten it, that they do reach out to us just to confirm, like, hey, do you have my application? Can you just double check on it? And we'd be happy to look into that. But the confirmation email tells them that they successfully submitted the application. Now, another requirement that students have is to complete the Nevada Promise training. So we do have a Canvas course, so basically an online course. We have a virtual training similar to this, and now we are hosting in-person workshops. And we talk all about the scholarship, requirements, the awarding process, how are we going to track certain steps and requirements. So it's really important that they complete it as soon as possible, but they do have a deadline of March 1st. So I think this is nice that so you have the initial deadline for students to apply, and then they don't have a deadline until March 1st. So many students are like, well, I don't know if I'm going to college. I don't know if I'm going to TMCC or UNR or out of state. And so we tell students, you just never know. You want to have options. So why not apply to the scholarship? The next deadline is not until March 1st. And by that time, students should have a better idea of what they're going to do, if they're going to stay at UNR or TMCC. And then that way they're not missing out completely on the scholarship. And then they have plenty of time to complete the March 1st deadline. There are 2 deadlines March 1st, so we want to make them aware of it. But I think to begin, right, there isn't like a huge commitment. In the fall semester, they just apply, and then in the spring semester, they decide if they want to continue. Do you guys have any questions so far? So the next step is to apply for the FAFSA. And so this application is a federal application for student aid, and we want students to complete it. It is a requirement. So this is our other March 1st deadline. For anyone who To complete the FAFSA, you need a social security number, and anyone else, if they don't qualify to fill out the FAFSA, then they would be completing the Nevada Promise Mom FAFSA filer. So our office, we have general information about the FAFSA, but if students and families did have questions, then they definitely want to reach out to the Financial Aid office. And let me type in that email here. And so this process, it can be confusing the first time. Students have to create an account with this website. The parent has to create an account as well. Like, you have 2 separate logins. So the parent has to have one email, and then the student has to have a completely different email in order to create the account. It does require tax information. Yeah, and I mean, at first it could be a little confusing, but reach out to Financial Aid and they'll definitely be able to help. And then this is kind of what, so these 3 right here is what students are, the FAFSA determines if they qualify for any of these. This is where the Pell Grant comes into play, SSOG, and then if they qualify for work study allows students to work at the college. They don't necessarily need work study, but it makes them, I guess, more employable, because the federal government will, what they're doing is providing half of the salary for the student, and then the college provides the other half. So that's awesome. And then they do also offer loans, and there are different types of loans. Of course, at TMCC, we hope that there is no need, especially with the Nevada Promise Scholarship, that there would be no need for the loans. Now, we also offer institutional scholarships, and that is going to be, let me see if I have it here. That's going to be the, so when they are seniors, they also, and it's going to be in the spring, they want to apply to the TMCC Foundation Scholarship. And that's open to them. So they would have the Nevada Promise and then the possibility of these. Now, something that is different with Nevada Promise is the fact that they need to complete a mentor meeting. And so who are mentors? What is their role? Why do students have to do this? And personally, I grew up in a mentoring program. I was part of the Dean Teacher Scholars program at UNR. And so I had a mentor from middle school all the way until, you can say now, because I continue to reach out to those people who mentored me. I was a mentor myself when I was in college, and so it's like kind of like the circle of just like giving back, right? And so I think that's the idea behind this. We know that mentoring is really important, that it's needed for some students. It's a great networking opportunity. And so this is different from other scholarships. It is a requirement for Nevada Promise. It requires students to meet with a mentor, but TMCC is responsible for arranging that assignment. And so our team, and if you're a parent and maybe a Washoe County School District employee, you can become a Nevada Promise mentor. We are always in need of them. And really, the restrictions here uh, is mentors have to be 21 or older. They cannot mentor their employees. They cannot mentor their children. So keep that in mind. But I think it is a great opportunity to just give back to your community, to help out a student who is making that transition right from high school to college. So I think it's really neat, and it has been very successful. You know, we have our mentors who are advocates for our students, who provide internship opportunities, who um, they're just there. You know, they're there to hear out the students, to remind them of their scholarship requirements, and so that's really awesome. And that's really their responsibility. If anything, the one responsibility that mentors have is to meet with their student so that they can complete this requirement. And so we typically will match them to their mentees around like students and mentors will be notified about April or so, and then they have until June 1st to complete their mentor meeting. Um, in the past, we would ask students to meet in person in a public setting. Things have changed, so no worries. So our mentors are pretty well versed in Zoom, and so it's okay to meet over Zoom or FaceTime. Um, Phone calls are acceptable, but we would like you to, that's kind of like your last resort, because we know that having like face to face interaction is going to be the best. And then if needed later on, you guys could call each other. So the mentor, everyone is notified of who they're matched to, right? And then from there, we will send out a tracking form. The mentor is responsible for keeping track of that form and filling it out for students. Well, once they have met, so they're the ones who track the meeting. And then students, I tell students, let your mentor, you know, be honest with them. Let them know how often you would like to meet. Um, Maybe it is just once a semester. Maybe you want to get in touch with them once a month. You let them know, right? They are volunteers. They are people who have full-time jobs, who are, you know, they have their own lives and all of that. So we definitely want to be responsible, responsive, and just be prepared when they do meet with their mentors. So hopefully students do have a great experience with this. Now, another requirement is that, and let me just go back really quickly. The mentor, students will meet with them in the spring semester of their high school senior year, and then once a semester when they are in college. So there are scholarship requirements. When they become a college student, there are semester requirements so that the students have to renew their scholarship. And so we'll remind students again, but it is really important to take note of that, because once again, the scholarship's a little bit different in that way, where now you have like semester requirements, and it's not just like, okay, I applied with a one time, I completed everything, and I'm set for the rest of my college years. No, they will have to renew some of these things every semester. And that leads us into community service. And so the idea behind this is that the benefit or the goal is that community service is benefiting the community and that students are giving back. The scholarship is it's state funded again, right? So we're thanking the community for their contribution. Um, And I tell students, do something that you'll enjoy. Do something, you're able to volunteer at a public institution or a nonprofit. So like if you want to be a firefighter, go volunteer there. If you want to be a teacher, go volunteer with a teacher and see how it is to be in their profession. And so all like their first year, yeah, it's only 8 hours, and then every semester after that they would have 8 hours. So during their first college year, it's technically they're going to be completing 16 hours, but it's going to be 8 hours per semester. And I'll show you our website today. I do want to show the website and show you a few resources as well. So hopefully I have time for that. Now, students are required to enroll full time. They have to be in 12 credits. So again, most classes are 3 credits. So that means that they have to be in four courses. They have to be enrolled in math and English each semester. They have to make sure that they are in the right classes. So basically, the classes that they're enrolled into have to apply towards their degree. Students do have priority registration with us, early registration. And so we say take advantage of that. You have registration before anybody else. Make sure that you get into the right classes. So the expectation is that students enroll into college at TMCC full time right after they graduate from high school. Now, yeah, we ask students to check their email. Whatever email they provide on their Nevada Promise application is the one that we're gonna email them at. So it's really important for them to make sure that they are checking that email. I might skip through a couple of these because I do want to show you our website. If you go to MV Promise, excuse me. So this is where you'll find all of the information that I covered, the awarding information. The community service is submitted online. So students will submit their hours online. I just want to show you a few organizations that students can volunteer with. So yeah, our job is to provide these options to students, and then students are responsible for contacting them, these organizations, setting up their volunteer, whatever it may be. They're responsible for that part. Now, the one last thing that I would like to share with you is the degrees offered at TMCC and what Nevada Promise would cover. So starting off with the Certificate of Achievements, the neat thing about Nevada Promise is that it does cover the Certificate of Achievements. And these are mostly certifications that help students be more employable. I honestly wish I could take bookkeeping. There are a bunch of bookkeeping jobs, there if students wanna, maybe we do have a 4-year program, a dental program, but if they wanna do the assisting program so that they can start working in the field, that's something that they can do. But I think this is really awesome. It's like there isn't a limit as to how many of these certificates they can have. They just have to complete them within those 3 years. And I'll show you that some of these, I'll show you the number of credits. So like these are all the courses that are needed for this program. And that's saying 30 credits. If students were to take 5 classes per semester, then they would most likely complete that in a year. Or they can maybe take like a summer course and still complete it in a year and still complete another certificate. Or if students wanted to double major, there are a lot of our students are on the pathway to transfer to a 4-year institution. So they're doing like the Associates of Arts or Science, and that's great. But students can also double major in any of these. But remember that as long as when they graduate with their associate's degree, then they are no longer eligible. That said, if a student would like to earn one of these bachelor degrees, then we work with the student. So technically they won't be like graduating with their associate's degree in order to qualify for Nevada Promise for 3 years. And then these programs here are mostly like 4-year programs. And so that means that the student would only be paying for 1 year out of pocket or with other scholarships. But I think that's pretty awesome that, yeah, there are a lot of possibilities with the scholarship. And yeah, I think that's it for me today. I hope that I was able to answer some of your questions. And I just want to leave some time for questions if you had any. Do you guys have any questions about like how the scholarship works, like when students will find out if they qualify? Well, yeah, they do. This is their last deadline, July 1st, to enroll full time, and then after that, they would be notified by like July 15th that they met all scholarship requirements. And then on their student account, they would see a total, like their award amount in early August. All right, well, that's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me today.